Hello everyone, I'm Gagan Saraugi, Product Manager for Data 360 Data Governance. In the agentic era, there's no doubt it has opened up new frontiers. However, there's one question at the top of everyone's mind, be it data stewards, data owners, executives at the board level, everyone has one question. How do I transform into an agentic enterprise without compromising my data security and adhering to the compliance requirements? In this session today, I hope you will walk away with answers to some of those questions. Before we jump into the actual content, just a quick call out. We will be talking about some features that are already GA, some are in progress and coming soon. So this is a forward-looking statement to align with that. And thank you so much for making the time to join us for this session today. I am joined here with my colleague, Keshav Sharma, who will be taking us forward.
Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you all. And thanks again for taking the time out, for coming out and joining us on the last day and this morning. So let's get started with answering how exactly you can govern your data across Data 360 in a manner in which you can empower trustworthy AI at enterprise scale. So we'll get started by setting the stage, talking about why agentic AI makes data governance more important than ever before. After which, we'll cover some of the foundational data governance capabilities which Data 360 already supports today. After that, we'll also be doing a quick preview on some of the exciting new capabilities which will be coming out soon, and then finally ending it with a demo. How does that sound? See a couple of nodding heads? Let's get started. So let's start with the why. According to Gartner, around 33% of all enterprise applications will be relying on agentic AI in another year and a half by 2028. And a key capability which will dictate the success of these applications and platforms is going to be the data governance. In another study conducted by Gartner, over 75% of all AI platforms and AI application platforms are going to be investing heavily in what they call TRISM, which is short for Trust, Risk, Security Management. And they plan on using TRISM as a key product differentiator. Now, Gartner has been talking to a lot of customers, vendors, and users, and something that they did notice was over 60% of data platform companies did mention that AI is going to be playing a significant role in the success of their platforms. However, only 12% of all these customers and companies mentioned that they believe that their data quality and accessibility is in fact good enough for AI. So what's actually the problem here? What are the issues that we're running into making data accessible and ready for AI? Now, at Salesforce and at Data 360, we've been hearing a couple of consistent themes over the years from our customers. It starts off with data inconsistencies. You have the same user that shows up differently in your CRM, in your marketing platform, or in your external data warehouse. Now, when you serve this inconsistent data to your AI agent, in return, you get inconsistent responses. Silo data sources. Enterprises today use anywhere between tens to hundreds of applications, and each of these applications come with their own data schema, their own metadata, and data model. What's missing is a unified governance fabric. Now, you may be able to support and govern a handful of objects manually, but when you have got tens or hundreds of data lake objects and data model objects spanning multiple different data spaces, manual governance starts to break down. And finally, compliance and security risks. If your AI agents have direct access to all your data, and they can not only use it, they can also act on that data, it starts to raise concerns when you've got misconfigured governance policies. And the answer to these challenges really comes through Salesforce's Agentic Enterprise architecture. It starts off at the foundation with the system of context, which is powered by Data 360, where any insight or any signal across your entire business can be converted into an action for your AI agent, above which sits the system of work, Customer 360, which brings over 26 years of codified workflows right within our applications. And Customer 360 knows everything about your business and your customers. We also have the system of agency, Agentforce, where you can successfully build, test, deploy, and then observe your AI agents at scale. But what brings all of this together is Slack, our system of engagement, where customers, users, AI agents, data, and applications all unite. Now, zooming it a little bit more into the system of context, Data 360, and how it works. It all starts with connecting to your desired data source, which could be another Salesforce org or an external third-party data warehouse. Once you're connected to this data source, you can bring in any data that you desire, be it structured data, be it unstructured data. You could also bring in data without copying it directly over using zero-copy capabilities. Upon bringing this data, what's really important is that you unify this data into a consistent unified data model, and also, more importantly, resolve any customer identities so that you have a single view of the customers, which may be present across multiple different data sources. Now, the focus of today's conversation, governance, it sits right in the center, and very intentionally so, because ideally, you do want to have all your data governed before it lands in the hands of any users, be it your internal users or any external partners or customers as well. Diving deeper into governance over here for a second, and even before that, the way in which you can bring in your data from your external third-party sources or first-party sources as well is through the metadata exchange service, which can also rely on Private Connect in a manner in which your data never really reaches the public internet to begin with. And within Data 360, governance is solved at multiple different layers, each of which we will be going into more detail in the upcoming slides. So this is the high-level view of the governance portfolio. We do think of governance and security independently. I think what's important to call out over here is that each of the capabilities that you see on the screen are really very intentionally meant to solve for different use cases and really adhere to the governance and compliance standards as well as the security requirements at different levels of granularity throughout the platform. So let's start talking about data spaces. Data spaces are really the foundational governance capability that we offer through which you can easily segregate and share your data across different business units, organizations, or regions. Now, data spaces serve as the foundational way in which you can isolate your data within the Data 360 platform. So you no longer have to spin up multiple Data 360 instances, which, depending on your organization size, can be quite time-consuming, complex, and more importantly, expensive as well. And once your data has been shared with your respective data space, all the data shared with the data space can only be accessed by the users who have access to that particular data space to begin with. And as we'll go on, we'll learn more about governance policies as well. But what's important to call out over here is that no matter what policy you create, your policies will also be respecting the data boundary constrained by the data space that you're in. Now, by default, when you spin up a new Data 360 instance, you get access to a default data space. And any time that you create a new data space, it comes with an auto allow all policy for the given data space, which grants access to all the data to all users who have access to that particular data space. Now, if you or your admin do desire to constrain that further, you can definitely create more custom policies and restrict the data even within a particular data space as well. Talking about AI tagging and classification, this is really where data governance starts to scale within the platform. So you no longer now have to go in and manually hunt down all your sensitive data. You can rely on the suggest tags feature, which relies on LLM-based tagging to generate tags based on your metadata. Or if you're not comfortable with that yet, you can also create custom tags and use these tags to span your data across any surface, be it within the Data 360 platform, or even if that data is being used in another application built on top of Data 360. But it doesn't just stop there. You can also use tag propagation. And by using tag propagation, the moment you tag any primary object or field, all downstream objects and fields will also be able to inherit the same tag. So by using these two capabilities, AI tagging and tag propagation, you will be able to easily tag and classify all your data within Data 360 with a couple of clicks. Talking about policy-based governance. So once you have tagged all your relevant data, you can get into Policy Builder within Data 360 and create custom allow or deny policies. And all these policies can be created throughout the experience that we do deliver today, as you can see on the screen right now. But once you're done creating your desired policies, you can also audit them. You can clearly see what objects a particular policy is protecting, who authored that policy, and if there were any changes which were made to the given policy as well. Now, the important thing to call out over here is you author your policy only once. And it protects all your data, be it your structured data, be it your unstructured data, no matter where your data is being used, either internally within the Data 360 platform, or if that data is now being surfaced to any application on top of it, like Tableau, Tableau Next, or Agentforce as well. I'm going to hand it off to Gagan to continue from here.
Thank you, Keshav. That was a great introduction. And with that, let's dive deeper into how the data governance features come together in D360. To begin with, the first concept to understand is Data 360 is built with the principles of least privileges, or secure by default. What that means is you need to assign data spaces to a user through perm set, and on top of that, have explicit allow policies to be able to access data. Until an admin has done both the steps, a user cannot have access to any data in Data 360. And this is true for both structured, unstructured, as well as zero-copy federated data. Irrespective of the source of the data, the consistent governance policies and the underlying framework of secure by default is applied to all your data sources. How do we make this magic happen? This is through a multi-layered policy engine that starts at object-level security, where you control access to users, to objects for specific users. Once you give users access to the objects, you can leverage field-level security to restrict access to specific fields within the object. Then we go further deep. What about restricting access to specific records within an object? So you have a record-level security policies which allow you to grant different users access to different subset of data within the object that they can all access. Last but not the least is the masking policies. It allows you to ensure that users can access the data, but sensitive data can be hidden from them. You can either nullify the data or you can redact the data depending on the sensitivity of the information. These 4 layers of policy engine come together to provide you a comprehensive, scalable, and granular access control mechanisms. We'll dive deeper into this to understand more on how each of these capabilities come together. Starting with the object-level policies, and field-level policies also use the same attributes, which are tags and classification. This allows you to apply governance at scale. You apply tag to an object, you create one policy, and the moment a new object gets created and tagged, the object is automatically protected. You don't have to worry about identifying individual object and protecting them one at a time. And this is the power of attribute-based access control. We leverage attributes both at the object level as well as the user level. The attribute for object is typically tags or classification, while for users, you can assign specific custom permission and tie the policies together based on the attributes to meet your specific governance requirements. The system also allows you to create a lot of complex policies. You can use and/or combinations with multiple tags, multiple permissions to create a complex policy to meet your specific requirement. And the best part is, as Keshav also pointed out earlier, once you assign a tag to an object, that tag can be propagated to all the downstream objects created from that source, be it from DLO to DMO mapping, DMO to CIO, CIO, or rather batch transforms, and even when you create search index. All the data through the lineage of the data flow is protected using the same policy, same tags, same attributes. What this does for you? 1, allows you to do it at scale. 2, make it consistent. And the best part is the same policies are enforced across the entire stack of Salesforce ecosystem. If you are using Data 360 for accessing the data, you are using Tableau dashboards, you are using Agentforce, no matter what. Once you have configured the policy, all the surfaces are protected by the same policy at scale and consistently, irrespective of the data type. Similar to object-level security, field-level security follows the same concept. However, when you assign an access to an object, you are giving a user access to all the fields and records by default. And this is where field-level security come in. Let's say you have an analyst who needs to create analytics report on sales data. They don't need to have access to customer-sensitive information. You can hide those fields from them. They can continue to do their job and will never be aware of any of the sensitive information that is even present in that object, let alone seeing the sensitive information. Now, you have set up object-level access and field-level access for different personas. Let's say you have sales executives in your team who are accessing the opportunities in the sales object. As we all know, salespeople are very sensitive about their data. They don't want to share it. You want to make sure that each user can only see the opportunities that they own. And this is where record-level security comes in. It allows you to protect the data based on the attributes of the data itself, comparing against the attribute of the user. You can create a policy based on user ID, compare it against the data attribute, and only grant users access to the data that they own. Along the same lines, you can also use role ID to provide access to data based on users who have similar roles. In a multi-org setup like DC1, where you have multiple orgs feeding the data into Data 360, you use org ID. So one single policy type can actually leverage multiple different and also combination of those user attributes to provide you a strong governance layer within the object to make sure each user can access only a subset of data as they are designated to access. And that is the power of governance policy engine here. Now you may ask, what if I don't have all of this attribute in the same object? I have my sales opportunity, but information about the users is sitting in the same object. How do I protect that? And this is where we have RLS with join policies, which allows you to control access to your protected object through a related object. Think of it as a SQL query, but with the simplicity of our UI. You don't need to know SQL queries to be able to create these policies. But still, leverage the power to protect an object based on a related object. Now that you have set up all of this, you might be wondering, can I use some of my setup from core? I am ingesting data from core. I have set up my hierarchies in core. Can I grant users access to hierarchies that are set up in core? Let's say going back to my previous example of sales executives, sure, all the sales executives want to be protective of their records, but a manager should be able to see all the records within his team. And that is where you can use hierarchies that are already set up in core in the data cloud policies. You can ingest the hierarchies from core into Data 360 and create a hierarchy operator-based policy to allow users access based on manager hierarchy, role hierarchy, or territory hierarchy. And all of this can work consistently and in the same manner between the structured, unstructured, and zero-copy federated data. You don't need to figure out what do I do for structured data. Oh, now I have to protect my unstructured data, and then I have to figure out what happens with the zero-copy data. All of this same framework, same concept, same logic applies to all the data sources. And carry over as you create more data from any of the objects that you have already protected. Well, this doesn't end here, though. We have another layer, as we talked about, dynamic data masking. This policy layer allows you to mask the data at runtime. Now, let's say you have sensitive information like SSN in your data, which a user is able to access, but you don't want them to see the entire social security number. Let's say you are a customer service representative. You need to have access to last 4 digits of social security number so that you can authenticate a user. So you can leverage masking policies which will only show last 4 digits of the social security number to this user. And this masking happens in runtime. So the underlying data is still not masked. You can use it for your analytics as is. However, when it is surfaced on the UI, you will not be able to see anything that is redacted or nullified for you. You have a lot of flexibility when you create your masking policies. You can either decide to redact the entire string, you can redact a part of the string, or you can completely nullify the data and replace it with a bunch of X's. So user will never even know what actually existed in that data set. Now let's jump into new capabilities that are coming soon. Some are already beta, some are coming soon. So we'll cover a few of those functionalities. In the spirit of consistency between structured and unstructured data, we are currently in beta with the unstructured data masking policy, which allows you to identify sensitive PII data within the unstructured file and mask those at real time. So say, for instance, you have a PDF that contains someone's loan application, and it contains your social security number, your date of birth, driver's license. Person who is processing the loan application may not necessarily need access to those sensitive data. You can create a policy which will identify sensitive information in the PDF. Only that specific string which contains this sensitive information will get masked when the user is accessing. However, a loan underwriter, they may need access to social security number and date of birth to pull their credit reports. You don't apply the policy to them, and they continue to access the whole data. As you might be already relating the facts here that the same policy framework, same concepts, same approach is applying consistently between the structured and unstructured data, and it is also extended to zero-copy federated data. Well, the admins are going to love this, the governance agent. We all know creating, managing, reporting, all of this is a tedious job. And when we're talking about governance at scale, the tediousness of that job is increased exponentially. We understand that and acknowledge that, and hence we are working on governance agent. It is currently in beta with troubleshooting capabilities. However, the long-term vision for the agent is to enable you to complete your end-to-end governance workflows using the agent. It can help you understand what your governance posture looks like today. How should you configure your policies to meet your end goals on what your corporate governance structure should look like? It will help you summarize the policies, author the policies, simulate the policies before you apply those, which is also a very important aspect of configuring governance. And most importantly, though, troubleshooting. When a user comes in and says, hey, I'm not able to access this data, and this is preventing me from doing my job, admin need to figure out right quickly what's happening here. Now, will you go through a list of policies to figure that out and try to see which policy is working together to cause this effect? Or you can have an agent who can do all of that heavy lifting for you. And it can also suggest what you can do if you want to resolve this matter. If you need to grant access to a user, it will suggest what are the next steps you can take to actually grant the access. Of course, it's at your discretion. If it is aligning with your corporate goals, you can decide to take the next steps. But at this point, agent is your co-pilot helping you figure out how to make sure your governance posture is maintained and your data is secured. This feature is coming soon. We are going to bring it GA in a very near term, which is allowing external users to access D360. There are a lot of apps that are powered by Data 360. Say your Experience Cloud, your Agentforce agents, chatbots, whatnot. And these are external facing apps which can be accessed by non-standard Salesforce users. Say, for instance, when you are going to a United website and you're browsing through different available flights, you are an external user which is using a United website, and the data might be powered from Data 360. At this point, you are browsing the website as an unidentified external user. Let's say you find a flight that you want to take, you want to make a reservation, you log into your MileagePlace account, and now you are going through your travel history, your miles, and so on. And at this point, you are an authenticated external user. What I'm trying to bring to your attention here is, when we are looking at external users, there are multiple personas. You are an unidentified external user browsing the website. You are an authenticated external user looking at your specific data. Now, when we open up Data 360 for external users, we have to be very mindful. There has to be built-in guardrails. There has to be governance policies that can be applied and enforced to ensure that users are only accessing data that has been classified for public access. To align with that philosophy, the access for external user is, again, secure by default. External users cannot access anything in Data 360 unless they have been explicitly classified as public objects or external-facing objects, and policies has been created to open up those objects for access. To make this happen, we have built out-of-the-box system policies which prevent any external user from accessing non-public data. That way, we ensure no external user can access anything in Data 360. Now, admins can go and classify the data and create the policies. We went a step ahead, and we wanted to make sure that admin cannot accidentally open up any sensitive information to public users. So we create default conditions in the policies when you are creating a policy for external user. So even if an admin tries to create a policy, they cannot make a mistake where a non-public data or internal sensitive data has been exposed to external users. It will force them to always have public classification for the data for it to be accessible by external users. And all of this, again, works seamlessly, transparently across all the surfaces, across any data source, and at scale. OK, now let's jump into the exciting part, which is the demo, and see how it actually works in real life. For the purposes of this demo, we are going to use a fictitious financial services company which provides loan applications. In this screen, we are looking at two different user personas. One is Alex, who is an executive at the bank, and he has access to all types of loans. While on the right-hand side, we have Sean, who is an auto loan specialist. So his purview is only limited to auto loans. As you can see, Alex is able to see auto loans, home loans, and personal loan, while Sean, he's only able to see auto loan. How is this happening? They are both accessing the same object. There's one object which contains all the loan information, but they are seeing different data. And this is where record-level security comes in. Now, let's look at a different surface, Agentforce. Both Alex and Sean are asking the exact same question to the agent, and they want to know what are the different loan applications that this user, Kenneth Jackson, has submitted to the bank. But they get different information. Alex here is able to see all the loan information, auto loan, personal loan, home mortgage. He is able to see interest rate, down payment, everything in plain text. However, the magic happens here when we look at the Sean's response. He is only seeing auto loans based on the fact that he is an auto loan specialist. If you notice here, interest rate field is missing. He doesn't see interest rate. Why? That's the magic of field level security. And to make it more interesting, as you can notice here, down payment field is masked. Sean doesn't know what is the down payment that Kenneth made for this loan application. So as you can notice here, we are covering multiple policies together to bring to life one use case where users with two different personas can access different types of data. Certain fields are restricted, and certain fields are masked. So this is the record level security, which is doing its magic when Alex and Sean are trying to access the same object. And Sean is denied access to anything which is not auto loan by this record level policy. We looked at field level security, where some fields were hidden for Sean, some fields are masked for Sean. This goes back to our tagging and classification approach that Keshav talked about earlier. You can tag the objects, the fields manually. You can use AI-based tagging and classification mechanism to tag your objects and fields at a granular level and create policies based on those tags. So here we have created a deny policy which says deny access to field which is tagged with sensitive data for users who does not have certain custom permission. In this scenario, the permission is not assigned to Sean, and hence he is not able to see the interest rate field. Similarly, there is a masking policy based on a different tag of account info. The masking policy says, I want to redact first n characters of the string. And when Sean is accessing the data, as you can notice here, the down payment field has the first 4 characters which are redacted. This goes back to the previous mention I had, which is the masking is happening at runtime. If earlier we saw when Alex is accessing the data, he's able to see the same down payment field from the same object in plain text. But Sean here, he is not able to see it. It is masked for him. Okay, so far we looked at different scenarios for structured data. And throughout the presentation, I have been saying the same framework, same policy engine works for both structured and unstructured data. Let's see that magic happen for unstructured data as well. Now, both Sean and Alex are asking same question to the agent about credit card policies at the bank. The credit card policies reside in unstructured PDFs, Word docs, and other different file types. And agent is accessing the same data set for both Alex and Sean. But you will see, for Alex, it comes back with all the details. It tells what the different tiers, credit scores required, and all the details that Alex should need to know. But on the right-hand side, when we're looking at Sean, he doesn't get any response. In fact, the agent's response is such that he doesn't even know that a file exists, but he's not able to access. It simply says, I'm not able to find any data for you. That makes it completely transparent for both Alex and Sean. They don't need to know what's happening under the scene. They don't need to know what data exists or does not exist. They just get the right response on the right surface in the right fashion from the agent. And this is where structured and unstructured data come together and provide you a complete power of a unified platform with a single governance engine working across the board on all the data sources and across all the surfaces. In this demo itself, we went through 2 surfaces already. One was the user profile, where we were seeing all the loan applications. Then we went through the Agentforce, where we are seeing how different users are seeing different data based on the governance policies applied to them. And this is an example of how we are denying access to the object to Sean, which is preventing him from getting details for the credit policies for the bank. Again, the same concept, you applied the tag, created a deny policy using the tag, and prevent users from accessing the data they should not. Okay, now let's say both Alex and Sean can see a certain file, but this file contains sensitive information. We already saw earlier in the demo that Sean is not authorized to see some sensitive information in the structured data. How does that work for unstructured data? Once again, both Alex and Sean are back at their good friend Agentforce, asking the same question. Give me the content of the latest application from Kenneth. And see what happens here. This is an unstructured PDF that was ingested as loan application submitted by Kenneth. Alex here can see all the data in plain text. He can read through all the information. Well, on the right-hand side here, Sean, he doesn't see the social security number. He cannot see driver's license number. Again, it's same PDF file which contains Kenneth Jackson's auto loan application, but depending on your persona, you see different data. And how do you make it happen? This is by enabling content tagging for unstructured data. This mechanism allows you to identify sensitive personal information in the strings within the unstructured data, tag those, and at runtime, it will mask those specific strings while keeping the rest of the content available to you. So as you can see here in the agent here, the entire document is available to Sean, except for the strings where the system identified social security number and driving license number. To reiterate, throughout this demo, we have seen how different surfaces are honoring the same governance policies across variety of data sources, including both structured and unstructured. To wrap up the session, I will quickly reiterate everything we covered. We went through the concepts of data governance, the multi-layered governance policy engine, how it works across your structured and unstructured data. You can separate the data at a macro level using data spaces. Within each data space, you have the full control, granularity, and scalability to control access to specific objects and specific data for a given set of users. You can use dynamic data masking to hide sensitive information at runtime to ensure that user is able to complete their tasks but don't have access to information they should not. We have governance agent coming soon to help the admins with their governance management and administration. And we are also soon releasing the ability to expose Data 360 for external users with the guardrails and governance required for that. Thank you so much. Thanks for attending the session.